something was said in here a few times, zero trust, right? There was the big banner of zero trust. We hear everybody embracing it, jumping through, skipping through the roads and saying we have zero trust, zero trust, zero trust, and spreading it all over like I don't know, like Skittles on a rainbow. But the fact of the matter is many definitions in the industry on zero trust differ. And so what does it really mean in practice? And is this a proactive approach, or is this a good enough? And let's just look at this. Angelo, in less than a minute, I mean, can we move beyond the theory at this point and explain how it reduces dwell time and protects the sensitive data in the real world operations? I mean, who has this successfully done?
Well, that's a secondary question. Success in zero trust. I mean, it's a strategy. Let's face it. It's not a product. It's not it's not a service. It's a strategy. But are you really Andrew Bakuda? I don't know. Let me. I need to see if you really are Andrew Bakuda. And then if I know you're Andrew Bakuda, are the words you're saying true? And if the words you're saying are true, then am I receiving them correctly? These are the kind of questions you need to start asking when you start looking at zero trust as a strategy. You need to start looking at and defining what you're talking to, who's talking to it, why it's talking to it, and where it's going to take that information. You need to start looking at things more in depth. So if we're going to look at how we reduce dwell time, it's about being more introspective at the right places at the right time and getting that data to the right people to make a decision. There's obviously a level of trust you need to put in somebody in the organization. And that level of trust needs to be translated into someone who can take action. So when you start looking at the data flowing in and the data flowing out and you having to make a judgment call, you need to look at it from the perspective of being able to verify the intended recipient, intended sender, and the intended data being sent in the intended way for the intended purpose. That's really kind of, the end all be all of what you're trying to accomplish. It's not a product. It's how you do all that is a concept and a strategy. That's the only way to reduce this time that you need to deliver that product. But I can't say any more in a minute. So
arguably, well, that really then flips the script a little bit to Ronan, who in this industry, in the cybersecurity industry, are we able to close the gaps, and can companies really realize that zero trust is achievable? And like, what does it look like, how this gap is being closed? Because usually large companies embrace zero trust, but there's a big spend versus results action that takes place, right? You have to spend so much to get this risk mitigation process or this program in place. How's the industry closing the gap to make it affordable for all?
Okay, so apologies everybody, I will stop using the home intruder analogy, and I will take a different one,
Sure.
The castle analogy, where everybody loved using it. In the past, we used to put the defenses before the castle, but what happened if someone waltzes into the castle with an admin account? Now we see that based on data and reports in the past years, more and more threat actors are using valid credentials to get inside. They're bypassing the regular defenses that we put simply by walking inside. What we are trying to and are developing constantly, and as Angelo said, this is a mindset, and this is something that needs to be constantly addressed. We are not looking at who should or should not get in. It's once they're in, should they do it or not? You can use a PowerPoint in your environment on a daily basis, which is amazing, but should PowerPoint reach out to PowerShell and try to access credentials? Probably not. So we trust PowerPoint in our environment, but we trust it to a degree. And from there, going back to the build not bot, based on research and based on data and based on insights that we see from day-to-day research and activities and incidents, we are able to fine tune this zero trust into a less noisy scenario, into a scenario that will allow you to focus on real incidents. And it is tricky, but it can be also fine-tuned and harnessed to a way that will show you the true positives. And those are the most impactful, by the way.
Nice. Rebecca, here's where I flip the switch and ask, as a person seeing the incident response, dealing with this in litigation and everything, is zero trust the final answer here? Is that enough? Because everybody that touts about zero trust, it's a program, it's the process behind this, it's going internal. The zero trust, you can get a breach too, could you not?
Absolutely. Because as Angela pointed out, it's also a mindset, right? Like
Yeah.
you're wearing a tinfoil hat on a regular basis really with zero trust, right? And not just myself, who I've been wearing one for years, but everybody in your organization has to have that buy-in, has to have that belief in that, like, I have to make sure that that person is who it is, and right, like, so I would say zero trust is a piece of the puzzle, is another arrow, if you will, for me, but it's not. Oh, there is no one. This is your solution. This is all you need. Here you go. You've got it. If you take this, take the red pill and not the blue pill, and you'll be just fine, right? Like that's just not where we are, and I don't think we're ever going to be there, because threat actors are changing what they're doing, and we adjust to, and we're making those adjustments. So, like, unfortunately, for better or worse, we're basically playing chess with the threat actors. Some of them play checkers. I prefer those threat actors because they're not that smart. But the ones who are playing chess, and you really are, they are your adversary, and you're making moves. It's moves and counter moves, moves and counter moves. And that's what we're going to be doing. But it's an arrow. It's not, and there's no one thing that is going to solve the cybersecurity problem, at least not yet. Probably not in my lifetime. And even though I don't have as many gray hairs as Angelo, I have a great colorist. So they're in there.
That's important.
And you'll give me a recommendation.
So let's continue this, because we're looking at, like, how is cybersecurity industry, is it meeting the client expectation for effective measures, and what does that look like, right? So we're looking at not just zero trust is not the panacea for everything. It's a piece, it's an arrow in our quiver.
Mm-hmm.
But then we run into things from a regulatory perspective, or some guidelines that, quite frankly, can be vague. And there's gray areas there. I know it's the law.
Shocking.
But then the words, and you said this in the beginning, using things like due diligence or all reasonable efforts, that's very subjective. And how can we bridge this gap when we're viewing this from different industries incorporating these countermeasures? I mean, is this gray area where we're going to be living, or is it constantly being defined, and this security measures, countermeasures, techniques, and everything, are they meeting it now? Where's that gap? There's a gap, it seems.
There is a gap, right? And I will also say that the law has not caught up to where we are from a technological perspective, right? So, like, that's always going to be an issue. The law lags behind, because we're batting cleanup, right? We're the something has gone horribly wrong, and that's why there's a lawyer brought in, right? Like, that's why we have litigation. That's why we have notification requirements. So, like,
well, it's based on precedents, right?
Right. And
something
like,
has to happen.
Right. Something, right? Like, I joke around, like, I'm like, the great thing about what I do as a lawyer in this area is that we're basically making the law. The bad thing that I do in this area is we're basically making the law, right? So, like, I can't go and look, like, a personal injury lawyer, a family law attorney, a real estate lawyer, hundreds of years of case law to rely on to say, this is what we should be doing, and this is how we should be doing it. That's not what we have here. And because we're dealing with this rapidly changing threat environment, it's never going to catch up. Like, it's never going to be a point where I'm like, okay, well, we can look at a case from 5 years ago and go, oh, they had, really complex passwords and training, and that was good enough. Well, it probably wasn't good enough 5 years ago, and it's not good enough now, right? So it's never going to align perfectly, I think. And we lawyers like to use words like reasonable, like what you were saying, like your best
All
efforts
reasonable efforts.
or all reasonable efforts, right? Like those are great phrases, like
Yeah.
up to and including, right? Like we love those. Like depending on which side I'm on, I either want really firm language or I want wiggle room, right? Because I'm representing a client, that's going to color how I'm defining a term. If I'm defining a term from the vendor's perspective, I want the wishy-washy language. If I'm from the customer's perspective, I want the strong, like clear language. So it really depends on like where you sit. And I think this is why I always say, like, well, I have general counsel. I'm like, general counsel doesn't understand this, right? Like, and they never will, because general counsel is dealing with how much is this going to cost, right? Do we have a limitation of liability provision? They're not dealing with what happens when there's a data breach and how much time do we have and what are we doing with this and who's going to be doing, like, that's the stuff that your privacy and security lawyer should be dealing with exclusively, because that's all we deal with exclusively, right? So like, that's going to be really important. But yeah, to answer your question,
Yeah.
you're never going to have someone who says, this is what you're going to do. And this is the answer, because like Ronan's like shaking his head, right? Because it's changing too quickly.